I've had a few requests on my spindle stop for the PM 728 VT's milling machine, and they want to know how I made this spindle stop. So I'm going to show you, and the first thing I want to tell you is that the plate that's on here I remade, and I didn't use the original plate. This is the original plate here, but I'm going to show you how to do it with the original plate. But if you take this off, obviously, this is the bearing retainer. You can't run the milling machine. So before you take this off, you have to make this part and attach it to that. So this is just a piece of 5/8 square mild steel, and it's about 7/8 of an inch long. I'll measure it. We'll get an exact measurement on it here, if I can see. Oh, it's exactly 1 inch long. And what I've got here is a hole that's 3/8 fine thread, and it's tapped, and it's 5/8 from the bottom here, which is the leg that sticks down, and this is going to be attached to there. And once you've done that, you can put this back on the milling machine and make the rest of the parts. I'm going to show you how to make this block that bolts on here, and then we'll show you how to attach it. But first thing we have to do is get this step in here, and the step is back 3/8 of an inch. So we'll do that. For that, I'm going to take a piece of 3/4 inch, 1 inch long, and I'm going to put that little step in here. And the radius of that bearing retainer is 3 inches. So I need to set a fly cutter. It's actually 3 inches and 50 thousandths. So I have to set a fly cutter a little over 1.5 inches to cut a 3-inch step in this block. To set fly cutters, I made up this little block some years ago, and it has a 3/8 inch hole, a 3/8 inch hole, and a 1/2 inch hole. And that's the size of my fly cutters. And the holes are exactly 2 inches from the ends. One's 2 inches from this, and the other one's 2 inches from that. So I can take this on there, and that's got a magnet on it to hold it on there, and I can set my fly cutter with that. And so I'll get a fly cutter out here. I'm going to use the big one. And let's see, 3 inches would be, I got to take that down to a 1/2 inch plus 25 thousandths. So I'm just going to do a little over a 1/2 inch there. And that will set this at 1.5. As you can see, I can set that very easy with this on there. I just slide the cutter out there to touch the thing and tighten it. Touch the end of the square. Tighten these up slightly. Hold it in place, take it out and retighten it. And that should be a strong 3-inch hole. A 3-inch radius, I should say. So I've got a piece of 5/8 square stock in here, and I'm going to do a test cut on it. We're down about 10 thousandths, I guess. And see how that runs. We're down another 10. Try 15. Let's see if it fits somewhere near right. Okay, and there's the piece. Looks like a pretty good fit. So we'll go down and we got to make that deeper. So that bearing retainer measures 140 thousandths thick. So I'm going to go down here approximately 140, 130, because that's got paint on it, and it's probably 10. So I'm going to bring this down. Okay, that's touching right there. I had the wrench, I could check it. Yeah, that's just touching, a little more than touching. I'm gonna go up a little bit. There. Okay, I'm gonna zero this, and I'm gonna go down 110, and I wanna go over 3/8. So we're going to zero that one too. I'm going to set up my stop. It's not quite in there. I'm going to go just a hair more. Let's try 10 thousandths. Another 15. I got to drill a hole halfway in between here, and that will attach the piece that I'm putting on there, the main body of the spindle stop. So in order to get this vertical, I'm just going to insert 2 drills here and put it on the height gauge, hold it up against my square block here, and now I've got it vertical in relation to those 2 holes, and this is 3 inches 50 thousandths. So I want 1.5 plus 25. This is 1.5, 25. That would be the center. So this is going to be the center mark halfway in between the 2. Now all I have to do is figure out how far in it's going to be. So the next thing we have to do is bolt this on here. And what I'm going to do is measure in halfway from here to there, and that'll be my distance for my hole. And then I'll measure that same distance in from the outside edge here and put the X, and then we'll drill the hole. So that measures 375, which is exactly 3/8, so that makes it easy. It's 3/16 in from the edge. So what I have to do is mark this 3/16 down from the top. So I'm just going to do it the other way. Go up to the top, go down 187 thousandths. There's 150, 60, 70, 80, 7. That's close enough. That's about halfway down right there. So I got my X. I'm going to drill a hole there. I got a prick punch mark in there. I'm just going to center drill it and then drill a hole through there for I think it's a 1024 thread. I've got to check the thread on this Allen screw that I've got. This may be 1024, and a 1024 is number 24 drill. That's the tap hole. I'll open that up as a clearance hole after I mark it for the tapped hole. Okay, this is just an eyeball thing. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. I mean, you could put this on the side or anywhere else, but I'm getting it pretty near exactly the center in the back. I'm gonna put a prick punch mark there. Now I'm going to drill the tap hole down through here. I always start with a center drill to keep the thing fairly accurate. That's actually a spotting drill I used. I used to use center drills, and I still call it a center. There's a spotting drill. The spotting drill is much better and easy to use. Not as likely to break either. We're going to drill this down through right into the tap hole. Center that and then put a clamp on the vise so it can't lift, because I didn't drill the hole all the way through. That might help. I did bottom out. Let's go back to square one here. Okay, now it's through. Hopefully I've got enough meat in there, I think. Yep. I may have to grind a little bit off of this, but that'll work. That should fit in there. get a Allen. So now I'm going to open up that retainer plate to a clearance hole, which is exactly 3/16. So I'll go a hair over 3/16. Hole in for the screw. Speed this up a little. Open that hole up. So now we're going to countersink this so that bolt sits flush, because it goes up against the housing of the spindle, so it has to sit exactly flush. I got a sharper countersink, and I hope that this will go down through there better. I'm going to clamp it down this time, because this type of countersink tends to grab. Not quite there yet. I finally got a countersink that's sharp, and that's going down through there pretty nicely. And that's almost, it is flush there, I would say. Yeah, that's flush. So there it is, bolted on there, and I think that's plenty solid. I normally would silver braze this on here, but I wanted to show how it can be done without silver brazing. And you could still soft solder it even though you bolted it, but I think the bolt is plenty, because you don't put a lot of strain on that. You just tighten in the nut. And I still got to shorten that bolt a little bit, as a couple of threads sticking through there, but that's basically finished. I had to put a little bit of a countersink in the block because the screw is going through that far. That plate isn't quite thick enough. Another thing that I didn't mention is, if you don't want to go through all that with the radius, you can just grind a small flat on this piece and put it up there square. But and you can just mill a square slot across there. But I thought I would show off my fancy fly cutter setter, and I usually do the fly cutting anyway. But that's the piece right there. Now I'm going to take the other one off of the mill, and we're going to install this one and show you how easy it is to work from here. This spindle retainer is only held on by 3 Allen screws, and of course they're metric. It's very easy to take off, and nothing's going to fall out of there. You can take it off with no problem. And that's that. Now I have to take the ring off of there. So there it is, and there's the ring. I'm going to remake this ring and show you how and why I'm going to remake it. But this is the one that I made up completely, and as you can see, I made it so this will screw into there. Now if I did things right, this will screw back into here, and I'll still be in business. And the reason I did this is to make it easy to take this part out if you want to modify it or anything. So there it is. I can see this one has to go in. It's got to have a little longer plunger, I think. No, I guess that's about right. Just a hair longer plunger. So as you can see, that step fits perfect. And now would go and would drill a hole. And this is already on here, and I showed in the video how I did that. And there it is. And this is a 3/8 fine thread hole, and it's exactly 5/8 down from here. So now that I got the bearing retainer back on there with the block on the back side and with the tapped hole, I can now screw this into it. And as you can see, this is the part that's the actual stop. But what I'm going to do is show you how to make this. And there's a couple of things you have to know about this. It's a 3/16 rod, and it has a little notch in the middle. But this side is flat and that side is rounded. And the reason for that is you want to be able to push that in fairly easy, and you want to pull it out without it pulling all the way out. And you have to really pull it a little bit more to get it all the way out because of that square step on the other side. So it just slides in and out like that. And this is a 5/16 bolt that's drilled with a spring inside there and a little plunger. And I'll show you how that's made. And what I just did is soldered a nut onto here. So in order to make this, I'm going to use a piece of 3/4 inch coal roll, turn it down, and put that 3/8 24 thread on it, and then bore a hole through it that's 3/16 plus. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn that down to 3/8 and put this thread on it, and it's sticking out approximately 3/8 also. That makes it easy to remember. And it really doesn't make any difference as long as you've got, you can screw it in there 5/8, so 3/8 is no problem. Face that off. Set up my stop. Okay, there's that part of it. Now, we're going to die in there. Some oil on that. So there's the thread. So now what I'm going to do is put a 3/16 hole in there for the pin. I'm going to drill a 1/8 inch pilot hole, and then I'll open it up to 3/16. And then I'll run a reamer through there to open it up. It's got to be about 1.25 inches deep. I'll run the 3/16 in there and then ream it. Okay, I'm going to ream this thing just a 1/1000th over. So before I take that out of there, I'm going to check the fit with a piece of drill rod, because that's what I'm going to use for the pin. Make sure it slides in there nicely. That's good. And now I'm going to part it off. Just going to mark that and then just saw it off. I'm making that 1.1 inches long. So now I'm just going to face off the back side to make it pretty. So I've put this in a collet block, and what I'm going to do is mill 2 flats on there so I can put a wrench to this. Now, as I said before, the reason I'm doing it this way is because you need the milling machine to make all the parts. So putting that block on the plate, you're finished there, and now you can still use your wrench on this, which I don't even have the wrench anymore, but till I put it back together with the stop, I can't stop that thing. So what I'm going to do is get the 2 flats on here and then check that for fit. So because I had a 15mm wrench in the drawer, and it's always in this drawer. I'm making it that size. So I have to put a nut on this side, or it can be anywhere, but I'm just going to continue this flat over because it's already there. What I'm going to try to do is drill this hole through here and tap it and see if that's enough meat. I think it is, so that I don't have to solder the nut on there. I can just thread this piece. So I'm going to hand tap this one for two reasons. One, I have a 4-flute flat tap that I have to back out and clear it quite often. And also, this is a dead end on that hole, and it's a not very deep thread, so I can't use the power tapping. Got to be very careful. Now I've got the hole tapped in there, and it's for a fine thread 5/16 bolt. What I'm going to do is take the head off of this bolt, and it's got to be counterbored up in here for the plunger and the spring. And I'm not sure what size that is. I'll have to measure it to give you the measurements by taking the other one apart. So there's the original one that I made. There's the bolt. And inside here is a spring, hopefully. That won't come out. But you can just see that there's a spring in there that gives that pressure. So I'm going to reproduce this. From this bolt. The next part is the ring, and I've already turned it, so I won't bore you with the turning of it. It's an 1¼ OD, and the ID, you'll have to measure your spindle because we're not sure they're all the same, but I would say it's 1 inch 777. So this is 1 inch 780, gives it 2/1000 clearance. This is 1/780. That gives it a little clearance. So it's about 1/777, I think. So now that the ring is made, I've got to put 2 Allen screws in here, 180 degrees apart. And those are going to be 1032 Allen screws. So I've marked this approximately 1/8 inch from the bottom. It isn't really critical, but you want to get them both in the same place on 180 degrees apart. But you want to get them close to the bottom. And there's a reason for that. I'll start off with a center drill. This is a 1032 screw that I'm putting in here. You can probably use it an 8, but I'm using 10s. Not critical. This is a pretty long set screw because it has to go into the flat. So it's a little longer than a normal set screw. I put 2 of those in there. Start them in. Now, these are in the bottom, and there's a reason for that. We'll put him on the flats, and they're going to limit how far this goes on. There. Now see what I've done. If you get the camera down here underneath, you can see I've left the flats. So if you ever have to put the wrench on there, you can still do it. And the set screws are up against the top of the flat. And I'm going to make sure that's centered and tighten them. Wiggle it back and forth a little bit. Okay, so the set screws are against the top of the flat and centered. Now what I'm going to do is put a pin back here with a point on it, and I'm going to run that around and make a mark for where the other holes go. So now I've got a center finder here that's 3/16. It'll fit in that hole where the plunger goes. I'm going to put that in the hole, and I've got bluing on here. And what I'm going to do is rotate that around, and it's going to make a mark right where I want the other holes. That's that. Now, as it turns out, this isn't quite centered, so the measurement on the plunger thing is a little off, which I'll show you that in a minute, but it's going to work all right. I'm going to put in a spotting drill, and I'm going to spot all 4 of those holes. The pins are 3/16, and what I'm going to do is I'm putting a 7/32 hole in there so there's plenty of play. So that will make up for any misalignment, and it doesn't really matter if it's a little loose in the hole, as long as it stops the spindle. Just removing the burrs from drilling the holes, so it goes on there nice and smooth. So in order to find the center spot there, I'm going to put the wrench back on it. It's all the way up. Gotta get the wrench. Oh, I don't have a wrench. You want to center the set screws right in the middle of the flat, because if you don't, what can happen is it can loosen up. So you want to get that sweet spot, and I do it by just wiggling it back and forth till I get the spot. And that's it right there. And then tighten them good and tight. Go in there all right. No problem. Okay, so now the next thing is to make the plunger. What it is a piece of 3/16 drill rod I used. You could use any steel, but I use a piece of drill rod that's a little smoother. And I put a little end on it so that I can pull it in and out easy. A little narrow. I'm going to cut a piece of drill rod that's 2 1/4 inches long. And I got to put this little notch in it, and I'll show you how to locate the notch. So I'm going to put a little bluing in the middle of this piece of drill rod so I can mark it for where the notch will be. Let's see. I want some clearance there. So what I'm going to do is put this plunger in until it hits, and then back it up till it's just not visible. Now I'm going to put the this little plunger back in the hole, and it's going to mark where I want the notch. I got to start that in there. So I'm just going to rotate the pin so it marks it, and it's not touching this at all. It's completely retracted. And now if I take this out of here, I should have a mark there on the pin, hopefully. Yeah, it's pretty hard to tell, but it's right there. So I put this in the vise, in the chuck here, and what I have is the part that inserts into the pinhole and stops it from turning is on this end. So I want this side of the notch flat. So when you pull the pin out, it won't pull out all the way. And then the other side will be tapered so you can push it in easy. So first thing I'm going to do is go in there with a cutoff tool. I'm going about probably halfway through that. And now what I'm going to do is file a chamfer on the other side. That should make the pin push in easy, but when you pull it out, it'll stop. So there's the pin, and if I pull it out, see, it stops right there. And hopefully this will still turn. Yeah, that turns good. And it's well retracted. And that's the in position. It's holding it. So that's working good. So now the only other part that you have to make is this little spring mechanism. And all this is a piece of 5/16 fine thread bolt with a hole drilled in it and a spring inside of it. And then the little plunger, I'll get a scale and hold that to it so you can see about how long I made that. So the piece of bolt is, let's see, it's just under 3/4 of an inch long. And the hole in it is over 3/16, just a hair over. And this is a piece of 3/16 also. So this piece here is also just under 3/4 of an inch long, and it could be 3/4. And I turned some to fit on into the spring on this end, and then this one is rounded off. And that's all there is to it. You screw that in there, and you can back it up with a lock nut. That's why it's a little extra long. Originally, I told you that this distance from the top of here down to where the pin goes through was 5/8. I would go to a 1/2 inch, and that will get these holes centered on the ring. If you go by all my dimensions, but it's you know, it's not real critical, but it's just the way it looks is all I'm. This is just for looks, polishing it up a little bit. Gonna get that centered again. There it is, all finished. Check all the holes, make sure it goes in easy. Yep. So you can see by putting that flat, when I pull this out, it stops. You gotta really pull on it. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you got something out of it. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel and give us a thumbs up. That's what YouTube grades us on. Thank you.